What I've learned after doing this for a long time is that if the CEO of an organization, regardless of the size, truly has a growth mindset and they understand that they can put their own egos aside and say, I'm going to benefit, and so is the organization, if everyone underneath me gets better at communicating, at knowing who they are, and developing their leadership skills. So when there's a proactive, progressive, growth-minded leader in the organization, they'll come to us just for those reasons, because they realize they've got enough on their plate. Let's bring someone in who actually devotes their entire time to developing people.
And hello, my friends, and welcome on board. My name is Derek Fennell, and I'm your host on the Next Gen podcast. And you're right on time for takeoff, so take your seats, fasten your seatbelts, and sit back and enjoy the flight on the Next Gen podcast. Welcome on board. And ladies and gentlemen, let's test something before we get started. If I were to ask your team to describe your company culture in one word, would they all say the same thing? Or would you get 5 different answers? Because that gap, that difference, is where most organizations lose alignment, performance, and growth. Not because people don't care, not because they lack talent, but because communications, leadership, and clarity aren't fully aligned. So welcome to Next Gen Podcast 1, where we explore the conversations leaders need, but they rarely have. I'm your host, Derek Fennell, and if you value conversation that challenges how you think about leadership and growth, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this episode. It helps this message reach more leaders who need it in today's quest, works directly in their gap. Adam Piendas, founder of Adam Piendas International, helps organizations strengthen leadership, communication, and team cohesion. So companies don't just grow, they transform. So Adam, welcome to Next Gen Podcast 1.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you, sir. And Adam, let's start here. What made you realize that communications and leadership were the real drivers behind business performance?
Well, I've been teaching and coaching in some capacity for about 30 years. And the way that I view leadership is that everybody has innate leadership abilities within them. And what I discovered at an early age, in whether it was working with kids or adults, is that in order to be able to access that ability within oneself, it really requires someone to take some time and learn how to communicate best with themselves internally. Because a lot of folks have limiting beliefs, or they don't believe they're good enough, or they're not worthy, or whatever it may be. And so the more that you can better understand those limiting beliefs that happen within yourself and be able to attune to those, the more effective you're going to be at relating to other people. And so ultimately, it comes down to the foundational piece, which is communication itself. If I better understand who I am, and I can communicate with myself more effectively, there's that thing going on inside of me saying I'm not good enough, or I keep shaming myself for these mistakes. How do I tone that down so I can build more confidence within myself and then step out and communicate more effectively with others? I mean, ultimately, if things need to get done in the workplace or whatever it is, effective communication really is everything.
I so agree with you. And actually, you kind of mastered at a very young age. And my study and back researching you shows that you were coaching at 16 years old. You were coaching kids and giving leadership direction at 16, which was quite remarkable.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I played basketball growing up. I played basketball in college, and I started coaching at a young age, and I realized that it was a place. It was just that one of those things where I felt very comfortable, and without really fully understanding why at the time. And I just kind of continued to pursue it because amongst all the options that are available to us, I just always found myself gravitating towards towards coaching. See, I
Okay.
got started at a young age and just stuck
Okay.
with it.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
was there a moment where you saw companies struggling, not because of strategy, but because of how people were working together?
Yeah, I mean, it was part of my own journey where, I was a, I'll take companies and sort of have it be this all-encompassing word that really means any community that's effectively trying to do things together and be effective and collaborate. I started out teaching in middle schools, and even there, there was always some sort of conflict that existed, whether it be amongst the kids or within the faculty itself, right? And oftentimes that conflict went unresolved, and when conflict goes unresolved, it really feeds into dysfunction that exists within, any working unit. And so dysfunction can either take over and be sort of the predominant energy that exists within a community, and I've been part of plenty of those, or, when folks understand that dysfunction is just part of relating to other people, and if you can lean into it and use your voice and listen better and ask better questions and just be more curious in general, a lot of conflict can get resolved pretty quickly. And so whether it be teaching in schools or coaching teams or working within organizations myself, or as a consultant within organizations, dysfunction is inevitable. It doesn't matter. And so the more people can come to terms with that and kind of get over themselves a little bit and lean into curiosity, then yeah, it really becomes the primary component for growth and collaboration, regardless of what the company dynamics look like.
Right. It's almost like a cancer,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. If you diagnose a cancer cell early on and get it resolved, as opposed to letting it fester, and it can be devastating.
It can.
Yeah. So, but what led you to build Adam Piendas International around the philosophy of what you do? What led you to that?
Well, I had done a number of different things prior to that, and many of them fell under that kind of coaching, teaching umbrella, whether it be teaching middle school, coaching basketball, training athletes, a variety of other things. I stepped out for a while and went into sales at a couple small companies. One was a startup company that you've never heard of because it doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
And where I was always decent at it, I did pretty well in sales. Actually, that came naturally to me also. I always just, whatever environment I was in, I ended up having conversations with my colleagues where I was taking on the role of a coach or oftentimes even a therapist. And I just felt that it was, taking on that role just felt more aligned within myself, and it just felt like where I could have the most impact.
Okay.
And that's what ultimately, I went to graduate school. I went through some coaching programs as well to sort of booster some of my advanced studies within how do you be a more effective coach, how do you be a better consultant, what have you. And then I just jumped in and I started coaching one individual for a couple $100 a month, and then, started coaching a friend who owned a business, and then it kind of snowballed from there.
Now, for someone hearing about your work for the first time, how would you best describe Adam Piendas International?
Yeah, our kind of foundational statement is leadership is the lever for results. And so we build leaders across organizations at all levels, because we believe that when people feel as if they can access their own voice and they have more of a say and they take on a leadership role regardless of the title that they have, they're going to be more effective, and so is the organization. And so some of the challenges we bump into sometimes is that most organizations see the importance, or they express the importance of developing all leaders within the organization itself, but a very, very small percentage of them actually do it or put the money behind it to actually do it for a variety of reasons. And so, our sort of position or mission statement is that, if you build leaders within all levels of your organization, it's really going to move the lever, and you're going to get the results that you desire.
Okay. So now, Adam, you focus on strategic communication and leadership development. Now, what does that look like in practice?
Great question. So there's a variety of ways that we engage with companies. It can be a 1 or 2 day workshop where we focus on fundamental communication skills. We put people in groups, small groups, some larger, to practice those skills. And I'm a believer, having played basketball at a pretty high level, that fundamentals essentially is what allows you to get to the higher levels and practice. So I take kind of the same approach when we're talking about communication and team building. You can't just say to somebody, I need you to communicate better with your team, because they might go, okay, well, what does that mean, right? So we have to give them the skills and develop fundamentals and have them practice, right? And so whether it's a 1 or 2 day workshop, we have a 6-week program called the Art of Masterful Communication. We move cohorts through that program together. It's a combination of an online course and group coaching. And throughout that whole process, it's kind of the same rules apply. Here are the skills. Let's practice those skills. What questions you have, you get live coaching to support you. We allow you to integrate what you've learned. Come back next week and we'll work on some new stuff, and we'll build on the fundamentals that we put in place before. Okay. So we have a 6-week program, we have a 12-month program, and then I have speaking engagements as well, where, all of it is somewhat of the same kind of content.
Right.
It's just delivered
differently.
It's delivered a little bit different way, right? But ultimately it's skill building and practice.
Okay. So Adam, when companies come to you, what are they usually experiencing right before they decide they need your help?
Yeah, it varies. I mean, there are, for me, what I've learned after doing this for a long time is that if the CEO of an organization, regardless of the size, truly has a growth mindset, and they understand that they can put their own egos aside and say, I'm going to benefit, and so is the organization, if everyone underneath me gets better at communicating, at knowing who they are, and developing their leadership skills. So when there's a proactive, progressive, growth-minded leader in the organization, they'll come to us just for those reasons, because they realize they've got enough on their plate. Let's bring someone in who actually devotes their entire time to developing people, right? Okay. So that's sort of one approach where you have a growth mindset leader. The second is when there is conflict and there's dysfunction that just kind of gotten out of hand, and they need a little bit of support or a lot of support in those areas. And that can be, that's a little bit of a different energy behind that conversation, right? Which is things are kind of falling apart a little bit here. We need some help. And so that also has to come from a leader who's open-minded, understands that support, an objective, neutral supporter, such as myself or someone that kind of plays a similar role, can really be effective, because I have a vested interest in the organization improving. However, I'm not emotionally involved with the issues that are taking place. So I can step in and be neutral and be objective in those moments. And that, I think, is the biggest piece, or is one of the more powerful tools that a consultant such as myself can bring to the table. Because when people are in, I don't know, I know in my personal life, when things are a mess, or when they've been a mess at different phases, it's very difficult for me to step outside of that mess and look at it objectively, right? And the same holds true for organizations, right? Because people are emotionally involved, they feel a certain way, and things can get heightened, and it can be difficult to be objective and neutral. So those are, I would say, those are kind of the two primary entry points for more of those deep dive group programs. And then it's, hey, we're having an event, we'd like you to come speak on how to develop leaders and so on and so forth. That's more of a bit of a one-off type of engagement.
So Adam, you're speaking about emotional intelligence and self-awareness. Why is that so critical for leaders today?
Well, if I go back to kind of what I started with, everything stems from how aware we are of ourselves and the way that we as individuals get triggered and stimulated by the external circumstances that we run into on a daily basis, right? So if I am unaware that something this person said to me got me upset, right? So I could sit there and continue to blame that other person for what they said to me, right? And I could just kind of hold to that position. Well, it's their fault they did this to me. I mean, ultimately, that's the position of the victim, right? Look what the outside world is doing to me. And victimhood doesn't go very far in leadership, in my experience, right? And so if I could say, hey, that person said something to me and I got upset, rather than saying getting upset at what they said to me, it's probably better for me to look at why I'm so upset, right? And so when I can start to attune to the emotions that come up and the reasons why I get triggered in that way, it's going to allow me to resolve that emotional unrest within myself. It's going to allow me to emotionally self-regulate. And if I can self-regulate, I'm going to be a bit more grounded. And now I'm going to be far more available and open to the people around me, right? But if I hold tightly to this narrative and story that person said something to me and therefore it's their fault and I take no ownership, it's an energy that I hold on to, and it doesn't really allow me to fully open up to the people around me. And even worse so, what ends up happening most times is I'll take that emotion and I'll project it onto those other people that have absolutely nothing to do with the issue at hand.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty deep. Can you give some examples of when self-awareness show lack of self-awareness, I should say? Can you give some examples of what lack of self-awareness when it shows up inside an organization? Chaos happens. Give us some examples of maybe instances you've seen.
Yeah. Well, there's, everybody's coming to the table with their own stuff, right? So no one in any organization, in my experience, is ever stepping into any circumstance without any baggage, right? Everyone's bringing their past experiences to the table, right? Correct. So we could be sitting, let's say we're sitting in a meeting, and you were to say, I'm trying to think of a real life example that really hits home. Let's say you were to say, I was in the finance department, you're in the sales department, and I was to say, well, if our salespeople only worked a little bit harder, we'd probably contribute to the bottom line a little bit, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right? And so now you're in the sales team, and you're going, well, hold on a second here, I'm busting my ass.
Yeah.
We don't have the resources that we need from the marketing department to do our job better, right? So what you have now are people who are bringing their own personal experiences to the table.
Wow, okay.
And are, in some respects, projecting their frustrations onto other people. Finance person is blaming the salesperson is blaming the marketing person, right? So, and all of those stories can be true because each person is holding on to their own perspective.
Wow.
And so if the finance person, me, says to you, hey dude, you need to dig in a little bit and be a better salesperson, the self-awareness comes in if you were to say, wow, that actually really pissed me off when they said that. And so let me examine what's coming up for me here and why I'm feeling so pissed off about it. And that in itself is the self-awareness piece right there, because what that does is you're saying, okay, I'm pissed off, so I'm going to take ownership for the fact that pissed me off. Now what do I do with that? I can either blame everybody around me, or I can approach you can approach me and say, hey, when you said that in the meeting, I felt angry. I felt frustrated by it. And I just I want to share that with you, and I'd like to, discuss it a little bit further with you so I can better understand your perspective, right? And now, that's kind of in an ideal world where two people are open to discussing things a little bit further, but it starts with self-awareness. It starts with the fact that, like, okay, this person said something to me, and I'm feeling a certain way about it.
Right.
And rather than just throwing it at somebody else,
Mhm.
I think it would behoove me to take a look at what that emotion is and then find a constructive way to move forward with that, right? So I just kind of made that example up off the cuff, but I
But
think
that's a great example, man.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example. I used to own a mortgage business, so I can kind of identify with that a little bit, where we had salespeople that would, put their package together to be processed. So you had the sales team, and then you had the administrative processing team.
Mhm.
So some deals would close. Maybe your deal got submitted before somebody else's deal got submitted, but their deal closed before your deal did. And it may be because they're waiting on some documents from the administrative side that the salesperson is really not aware of, but the salesperson is feeling like you're choosing to work on their stuff before my stuff.
Yeah, they feel neglected.
Exactly.
neglected.
Yeah. So that was a great example, man. That great resolution on how to address it. So now,
Yeah, I'll just take that one step further, right? Like, what often happens is that, and I don't know if you've had this experience, but I certainly have.
Mhm.
Something will happen at work,
Mhm.
and it will bother me, right?
Mhm.
And I'll take that energy and I'll carry that with me through the day, and then maybe I'll lose some sleep, or
Yeah.
maybe I'll get upset
Yeah.
at my partner or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And over time, what I've learned is that the more willing that I've been to take responsibility for the emotion,
Mhm.
the quicker I've been able to resolve that long emotional tail that can carry us into the night, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
the importance of it extends beyond the workplace. I think it's just more for like general well-being and general health.
I agree with you. So even though we're talking about the leadership having the proper or dealing with emotional intelligence, really it's for everybody within the organization to deal with their own emotional intelligence.
It is. Yeah.
So that's great, man. So now, what changes when leaders become emotionally intelligent within the organization? What changes?
Yeah. Well, I in my experience, when I've worked with people who understand that their emotions are theirs and not everybody else's to throw it at, it's just a far more pleasant environment to be a part of.
Mhm.
And quite honestly, things just get done, right? I mean, if I'm a leader of an organization, and I just recently partnered with a company where I'm going to be I'll be working with about 40 of their top leaders for a good period of time here.
Mhm.
And the CEO of the company is emotionally aware, we'll call it intelligent,
Mhm.
is very approachable, also understands where her shortcomings reside as well.
Mhm.
She moves fast and quick, and sometimes can be a lot to handle, right? But she's aware of it.
Mhm.
And so just her awareness of it doesn't necessarily mean she has to change who she is, right? My encouragement is always, don't change who you are. Keep moving quickly, keep moving fast,
Mhm.
and understand that people around you just don't move that fast, right?
Right,
They
right,
just
right.
don't move as fast as you do, a majority of the people out there. So if you can understand that people are going to have responses to it, it may
Mhm.
create fear, it may create anxiety, it may there's a whole plethora of emotions that that sort of like speed can bring forward.
Mhm.
We'll work with it and we'll deal with it, but you can't deal with it or work with it if there's an unwillingness. or if there's a leader who is unaware that they are human and they have emotions as well.
Right.
So it really requires a concerted effort. Like anything, like we talked about, is building the skills and practicing them.
Yeah. It's almost like, in that scenario that you just described, you could take someone, so people from New York, for example, people are not from New York. They're like, okay, you've heard of the New York Minute, right? So they do everything quick, fast, and in a hurry. Then if you go down to the Southeast, they're like, well, let's think about this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very culturally, things move at different paces.
Yeah, so, and then you got people from California, everybody's just kind of laid back and chill, and so you have the right person that has the right skill set that you need, but just because where they came from, they just move differently.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. It really is a great analogy. I think it works really well because you're talking about cultures.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, you just have to, so that's great. I'm loving what you're talking about.
Yeah,
so
and
now
that resonated for me. That resonated for me because I'm from Boston, but I've lived in California for 25 years. I still have a little bit of that Boston flavor in me, but California is like kind
it's
of
a whole
chilled me out
different
a little
vibe,
bit.
right? It's a whole different. Yeah. So that's. Now, so what does a cohesive team actually look like in real life and not in theory?
Well, they can look a lot of different ways, right? It could be a team of 2, it could be a team of 200. And in my experience, cohesion often is an extension of trust, and trust often feels like this nebulous endeavor that people know that it's important, and yet, there's often a question of how do we build it? And then there's those who have no interest in building it whatsoever because their interests lie within themselves, and that's where it ends. But in order for teams to be cohesive, I've coached basketball teams before, and and the more cohesive teams have been the ones where I coached boys basketball, so where the guys trusted each other, right? And so, and trust is an extension of getting to know each other and connecting on a more personal level. That's ultimately where trust is built, right? So I've given talks before where I've shared a story of, when I was 5 years old, my dad was pushing me on the swing and I fell off the swing. And I tell this story about that experience, right? And then I'll go on and I'll talk about leadership stuff and so on and so forth. And then at the end, I'll say, what stuck out the most for you? They're like, oh, when you fell off the swing, And so they got to know me through that example, and I was vulnerable. And so what that does is it created a deeper connection with the audience itself. And ultimately, whether people knew it or not, an audience trusts me more, inevitably, because I shared this story that they can relate to. Because all of them were 5 years old at one point, right? So by creating a meaningful emotional connection, they built trust. Now, when you talk about an organization and cohesion, again, like it's a challenging environment because there's bottom line pressures always. We have to make more money is always the number one driver. Because if you don't have any money, you can't keep the doors open, right? So how do you move towards that and have an environment where people can express how they're honestly feeling about a certain situation, and know that there's a trustful environment where they're going to be able to do it, and 2, they know it's not going to be used against them.
True.
Right? Because if I say something that's going to be used against me, probably not going to say anything.
True. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you have to build an environment where people feel safe enough to express how they're feeling, and not walk on eggshells because they know it's going to be used against them, or they're not going to be put down for being weak or whatever it may be. Right. And so that's where cohesive units really are seen. is when there's a trusting environment for people to work together and collaborate.
Well, I tell you, you hit 2 points that I just gotta elaborate on. The first point is talking about basketball and how how basketball a lot of times relate to business, okay? And it relates in a way that you're trying to build a winning team, right? A winning team, meaning what your goals are in business how it relates to that winning team. And so the ultimate winning team would either be the Chicago Bulls or the Golden State Warriors.
Well, let's not forget about the Boston Celtics, my friend. They've got the most championships. And
Or the
let's
Los
not
Angeles
forget about
Lakers,
the Celtics.
you know?
Yeah, well, I think the C's have one more, but who's counting?
But you're right. And you're absolutely right because, I go way back in my basketball career,
Cool.
I grew up loving the game. So I remember when Bill Russell and John Havlicek and all those guys back in the day.
Yeah.
Right on up to current modern day, So anyway.
Well, you're going way back, so I won't ask you your age.
They have this question about the GOAT, right? And they forget about
always.
Bill Russell.
Always.
They forget it. Yeah, you know what I mean? He had 11 championships.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
so I know my basketball history. But
Cool.
But I was talking about how in business you're trying to build that winning team, and if you look at these organizations, they have all these organizations that we just named have a culture of winning. How does that relate to building a winning organization in business?
Well, there's so many parallels, right? I think that's why oftentimes sports analogies are used, right? Because they're very relatable in the sense that you have this team and they're a working unit, and the best teams that work as a team tend to rise to the top. Having been in both environments, a basketball season, there's going to be a lot of turmoil that exists within any organization. And as you move up the ranks and you move into the professional levels, I mean, there's a lot of ego in the room. There's a lot of very, the most talented people in the world are in these rooms. And so as a coach, and I have a friend who's an NBA coach right now, and I mean, he's coaching at the highest level. And his biggest challenge, I would guess, without having asked him directly, is how do you continue to make every person in that room feel like a valuable member of the team, right? And at that level, you're talking about guys who are making millions of dollars each.
Yeah.
But yet, they all want to be on the floor at the same time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't get there without working their asses off. And
Right.
so how the team from the top down, from leadership, from coaches to the general managers to the president and on up, how they deal with conflict essentially is what makes for that organization's success. Right? You hear about organizations that function at a higher level, that everyone, guys want to go play at. And I'm using guys because I coach guys basketball, but this is ubiquitous across genders, right?
Right.
And so there's a reason why those organizations are the way that they are. And ultimately what I just shared, and I believe it comes down to is how they choose to enter into conflict, because conflict is going to exist every single day at all levels amongst people and within people within themselves. So you've got to give the tools. You have to provide the tools. Now, if we take that and move it into organizations, same rules apply. You have to give people the tools to develop self-awareness, right? You have to teach them that they are essentially in charge of their own emotional well-being. You have to give them tools to help them emotionally self-regulate, meaning I'm starting to feel a certain way. How do I manage that within myself? And then once you do that, and this is often, I think, where the work gets lost in the shuffle, is that when you think about communication training, a lot of people think about stand up straight, project your voice, or whatever it may be. And there are some like, be more curious, ask more questions.
Yeah.
Here are good questions. Here are,
Yeah.
you know, so on and so forth. All of that is important.
Mm-hmm.
However, none of that happens until the individual learns how to deal with themselves first.
Right.
And so if you can give people the tools to help them become more emotionally intelligent, more self-aware, and then practice those, inevitably they're going to be able to step out and have more empathy for the people around them, because they realize that they're ultimately just a reflection of themselves. And they're going to be able to step in with more curiosity because they're not so consumed with their own stuff, because they know how to resolve it.
Right.
So that's, and that works. It doesn't, I mean, I've worked in schools, teams, high performance athletes on the field, organizations of all levels. I've done work in the prison systems. I've worked with people deep in addiction,
Mm-hmm.
and all the same rules apply.
But Coach, I'm gonna tell you, you've sold me. I'm on your team, man. If you have me,
Yeah.
if I can shoot it well enough for you. So, Coach, for leaders listening right now who recognize these challenges, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, I mean, there's a variety of ways. Probably the two best ways are if they wanted to reach out to me directly and wanted to explore more of what my work looks like, is my website at adampiendas.com. You can hit me up on LinkedIn, the way that we connected.
Mm-hmm.
I'm soon to be launching, I had a newsletter that I ran for about 5 or 6 years, and I put it on the shelf for a little bit, but I'm soon to be launching a new Substack newsletter, which is going to be called 2-Minute Coaching Sessions.
Okay.
And so those are probably the 3 primary ways to connect with me.
Okay. Now, what does working with Adam Piendas International look like?
Yeah, well, it takes a variety of forms. I work one-on-one with a select group of C-suite individuals over the course of a year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hold a C-suite position or a business owner and you're looking for one-on-one support,
Mm-hmm.
if I have room at that time, I'm available for that.
Mm-hmm.
We also offer 1 or 2 day workshops, which we call growth accelerators.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our 6-week cohort-based program where we move teams. It's called the Art of Masterful Communication,
Mm-hmm.
which I mentioned before. It's a combination of an online course and virtual group coaching. And then we have a 12-month program called the Integration of Masterful Communication,
Mm-hmm.
which basically takes the principles from the 6-week program, and we expand upon it over the course of a year through virtual group work, some in-person work. And then I'm also a keynote public speaker talking on the
Okay.
topics of leadership itself.
Okay. So Adam, what would you say to a leader who feels something's off, but they can't quite define it? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I know a lot of people now are leaning towards ChatGPT, which is certainly helpful and one route to go. And my encouragement would be to get support. You know, I have a coach, I have a therapist, I have a trainer, I have a chiropractor, you know, and I lean into all of those people for different reasons,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that I have blind spots that I can't see.
Oh.
And the more people that are willing to meet me at those blind spots and challenge me and ask me questions that'll help me grow,
Mm-hmm.
I know the better off that I'm going to be. So
Mm-hmm.
my encouragement would be to find a coach or any of those other modalities that I mentioned, where you're going to help you attune both physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
That is great advice. Because if you think about the professional person, not just athlete,
Sorry.
but just
My dog. Hey,
okay,
sorry about
he's
that.
good. We all got him.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you think about the professional person, I'm not just gonna say athlete, but the high performers in whether it's sports, business, or any other entertainment or any other endeavor, they usually have a coach or someone to help them find those blind spots that you just mentioned to
Yep,
get
absolutely.
better. So yeah, that's great advice, I think. If you could give leaders one truth about leadership and communication that most people overlook, what would it be?
I would say that less is often more, right? And
Mhm.
so, the best listeners make the best leaders, I would say. I listen, I like, I sort of listen for a living in a lot of respects, right? So, and with listening means you have to be able to put your own stuff aside, because it's very easy to bring our own stuff to the table. And so for me, when you listen, you refrain from giving advice. I never tell my clients what to do, ever. I don't ever say, I think you should do this, I think you should do that,
Mhm.
because I actually don't know what's best for other people. I have no idea. I
Mhm.
may think I do. I may have a good idea, like, God, if they just did this one thing, it would really be helpful.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's their journey. And so listening and asking good questions
Mhm.
allows the other person to come to their own answers. And when a person
Okay.
comes to their own answers, they're like exponentially more likely to take action.
That's true.
So
That's great. Well, Coach, I do have one last final question for you. Okay. Now, who is the greatest team basketball to ever play? Now, I want you to put your biases away. I want you to look at this objectively.
yeah,
In your mind, who was the best five that suited up as a team and played?
the 86 Celtics.
86 Celtics.
Yeah, I would say.
Okay.
Not sure I put my bias aside on that one, but I'm going to go with the 86 Celtics. I'd say probably in the modern era, it was probably either well, I don't even know if it's modern anymore, but what is the 96 Bulls? Or is it 96 Bulls?
Yeah, I
or
think it was
like
96 Bulls.
the
What about the
2017
Warriors? They did.
the
The Warriors had to
2017
win. Yeah,
the
they didn't
2017
win
Warriors.
championship though. But
Yeah, I was going to say the 2017 Warriors too. That's
yeah.
with Durant. I mean, that was a squad. How about you?
Right,
Who would you say?
Well, it's a tie, and I got to go with my Bulls. And I grew up a Laker fan, so I got to go with the Showtime Lakers.
Yeah, I mean they had great teams. That rivalry was incredible back in the 80s.
It was Showtime Lakers with this, I guess, Bird and all those guys. It was some magical moments made during that era.
Sure
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. So Adam, I certainly appreciate this conversation and the work you're doing to help organizations build stronger leaders and more connected teams. And to everyone watching, if this conversation gave you a new perspective, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this episode. These insights need to reach more leaders. To learn more about Adam and his work, connect with Adam Piendas International. And if you're a leader who senses something's beneath the surface, may be affecting your organization, explore the Clarity System by Creative Minds AI, because clarity always comes before transformation. I'm Derek Fennell, and this is Next Gen Podcast 1. Certainly has been a pleasure to have you on the show, Adam, and I think it's one of my best. I just love the information you share, Thank you
so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And for the people that joined in, please, again, like, share, subscribe, and make sure you reach out to Adam, because he's Coach Adam Piendas. He's giving some great advice. Thank you, and thank you, Adam.